Hey, what's up you guys? It's Kevin, and today I'm bringing you some really creepy facts and conspiracy theories about South Africa. So guys, if you know me, you should know that I'm absolutely obsessed with anything conspiracy theory wise. It doesn't matter whether it's homebound or overseas, pop culture, any kind of category. If it's a conspiracy theory, I'll hear it. I don't know why I'm so mad about it, but I really am, and that's why it's just been eating at me to actually do a conspiracy theory right about home, right about South Africa. Now, amongst all the political drama and every other kind of drama that we have, I really did have to dig deep to try and find some good ass conspiracy theories that you guys may not have heard of. So let's get right into it. Okay guys, so one of the first ones that I've heard of doesn't really sound that kind of original to me, and there's not really much evidence to back it up either, but the first thing we can really say is that there has been a suspicion that the American embassy is sending in South African students to be part of a regime change. So what happens, according to the conspiracy theory, is that the American embassy will take various South African students that have just entered university or college level and will ship them over to America for around 6 weeks, whereby they brainwash them and kind of just give them, you know, a whole different perspective on what should be going on. Ship them right back to South Africa, and once they start university, they are a part of a regime change. So in this regime change, various things happen. They kind of program students to, you know, make them leaders of anarchy and change the system of, you know, the country's ways and just the ways that we do things. Now, this does seem a little bit far-fetched in my opinion, but if it isn't, I'd like to go to America for 6 weeks.
Okay guys, I just found this. This is a little bit of a snippet from Business Day, as you can see at the bottom of the source, where it actually shows that the 6-week program was called Washington Fellowship, and the US ambassador was actually a little bit taken away because he had personally recommended that the Secretary General should recommend students for it. But the Secretary General kind of mentioned it, that he was going to brainwash students. Either way, there was no real evidence to back up his claim.
Yeah, it does seem a little bit far-fetched because there was no evidence to back up these claims, but who knows? We could be walking around brainwashed university students every day of our lives. Okay guys, so the next one is one of the most popular conspiracy theories within the 20th century, and this is that the American CIA invented the HIV/AIDS virus and planted it in South Africa to grow in order to kill homosexuals and African American people. Now, this one does hit home pretty deep since HIV and AIDS is very prevalent in our country, but I'm not sure if it's true at the end of the day.
Most of you guys know that the human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV, is really damaging to your immune system and affects the way that you fight off diseases. Obviously, this is mainly a sexually transmitted disease, but there are a few other ways of getting it as well. I thought I'd just give a quick basic definition for those of you that don't really know what it is.
So basically what happened in the year 2000 when Thabo Mbeki was still in presidency, he kind of sparked the rumor that the Americans had made up the HIV virus and had sent it to Africa in order to spread it and start killing off homosexual people, you know, no matter of what race or gender, and then again African Americans and Africans themselves, to start killing them off with the virus, which is pretty harsh. And then there's also beliefs that the HIV virus was directly injected into homosexual people and African Americans to kind of activate the genes and start letting them spread it through sexual contact and various other methods. Now, even though he kind of brought this up, it wasn't really taken as a serious threat, and still to this day, everybody believes that it wasn't necessarily true, and that HIV was in fact kind of hopped over from the monkey species to the human species back in the 1930s. Now, I'm not 100% sure on the truth of this matter, but it's still pretty scary to think that even though it may not be true, scientists were deliberately trying to spread a virus to kill off people. Now that doesn't really sound that far-fetched to me, because we've seen it before where scientists test on humans, test on animals. Maybe it could have been something that went wrong, but to me it's still a freaky kind of theory that I just can't get over. It really gives me the shivers at the end of the day. So the next one to me sounds really real, and I'm not gonna lie, it really does creep me out at the end of the day. It's that Absa Bank is part of the Illuminati, or is at least trying to prove themselves to the Illuminati. Now, everybody who's anybody, maybe not even South Africa, but around the world, knows of Absa, has an Absa account, and either banks with them at the end of the day, whether they have money there or they do transactions or whatever. Now, it's said that in previous adverts of Absa, one that aired specifically in 2015, they give off a lot of Illuminati symbols in the advert. Now, as you can see in the picture, it shows a man doing the Illuminati triangle and covering his one eye. So at the end of the day, those are already two kind of standing points for the Illuminati by showing their symbol, the triangle, and covering either one eye or both eyes. So covering the one eye is a big symbol of the Illuminati because it says, the all-seeing eye. And, this has been, recorded quite a lot in not just pop culture, but different brands as well. And if you take a close look at the Absa logo, now this is pushing it a bit, but the kind of symbol of the Absa logo, the little twirly thing, has the layout of a triangle.
It's also pretty creepy to recognize that there's one dot in the logo, which kind of symbolizes one eye, while the line that rushes up for the A kind of symbolizes an arm or a hand that is covering the other dot, kind of symbolizing that it's covering something or covering an eye or a hypothetical eye.
And the Absa logo, ABSA, A and A at the end of both of the words, have a lot of triangle symbolisms in them as well. Now, this does sound pretty crazy, I'm not going to lie, but I kind of believe in the Illuminati having a presence in the world, and it's not that kind of crazy to me that, there are people who do control certain things. And to control a bank in a country that has a lot of resources makes a lot of sense. Now, I'm not saying this is true towards Absa in any way, like I don't want to be sued, I don't want to have any issues, but if you look at the signs, it looks pretty real to me. So the next one creeps me out because it is just so real in the country right now, and what's happened has been devastating. I'm a big animal rights activist. I believe, animals are on the same level as humans and they should not be hurt whatsoever, but the increase in rhino poaching in the country has been really real as of lately, and we've hardly got any left to actually protect at this point because of poachers buying and selling the horns for various products. It's a really sad situation, but the conspiracy theory that's about to come next does make a lot of sense, and that is somebody already has a huge stockpile of rhino horns and they're just killing off the rest. So once they're actually extinct, they can sell these rhino horns at a massive profit. Like I said, guys, if you live in South Africa, you know that rhinos are almost extinct and they're being heavily attacked. So this isn't actually much of a conspiracy theory because it's really real, but the fact behind it does sound pretty interesting, that a person has been hunting rhinos for a long time before the prevalence of increased rhino poaching kind of shot up in the recent years. And they've been collecting the horns to sell later on at a higher price when the rhinos are extinct. Now, rhino horns sell for around $250 to $500 per kilogram. That is a lot of money out of one rhino horn, and if a person has a bunch of rhino horns stocked up and they're the only supplier, you can only imagine how much money somebody like that would make. Now, it doesn't sound that far-fetched to me at all, and I believe that whether or not this conspiracy theory is true, rhino horn poaching and rhino poaching are very, very terrible things, and as a country we are doing a lot to protect the rhinos and protect their integrity, but at the same time there's only so much you can do when you've got international people, international poachers, a whole craze of people thinking that rhino horns can work wonders on people's health and sexual health. It's just crazy what is actually going on, and I'm just hoping one day that people realize that it's just such a hoax and that we can actually repopulate and, just stop going through this kind of trauma. Okay guys, the last conspiracy theory is very, very sensitive, and what I'm about to talk about, I do not mean any disrespect to the family or, anyone related to Nelson Mandela, but this is just based off what research I've done and what I've actually experienced at the time of the incident. So, as you can tell, in 2013, on the 5th of December, our ex-ANC president, Nelson Mandela, passed away. He was very old when he passed away, and he had a very long life. most of it was hard, and at the same time he inspired a whole youth to change their lives around. And talking about such an honorable man really does make me a little bit teary, but what I'm about to tell you is really shocking at the same time, and to me it makes a bit of sense, to be honest. So if you can remember, Nelson Mandela was rushed to hospital in June 2013 due to complications, and he was pretty much on his deathbed at the time. As such a dignified man, we were all pretty much shocked. It was pretty much one of the stories clouding the news at the time. So the theory says that Nelson Mandela was actually supposed to pass away naturally and peacefully in June of 2013. But what happened was that he was kept on life support. They gave him any kind of medicine they could to keep him alive, even if he may have been brain dead or any kind of severe complications. They kept him alive for another few months until it was time to vote. And since Nelson Mandela had such a strong connection to the ANC, it was advised that he may have been kept alive to gain the sympathy vote of the ANC party. Now, I'm not saying this is correct by any means, but it does make a very interesting point, because even though he's not in the presidency anymore, he has a high history of, you know, taking over in 1994 and changing the country for the better and reuniting everybody and just, you know, bringing forward a peaceful nation. To have him go like that could be detrimental to the ANC, and so even at a time of voting, they decided to keep him alive to gain sympathy votes in order for people to vote for the ANC. Now, older generations still kind of believe in the ANC because it is a respected party and for what they did in the destruction of apartheid. Now, I completely agree the ANC has done wonders for everybody, but with the inclusion of new presidents, it hasn't really gone that well. And so the younger generations believing in other parties such as the DA or anything else such as the IFC have, you know, started drifting away from, you know, beliefs that ANC will save them and will have a good kind of reputation as going forward. And so with Nelson Mandela passing away, you know, that kind of guilt tripped them into voting for the ANC, you know, to bring forward that legacy once again, even though it was kind of false promises. Now, that was one of the most dreary conspiracy theories that I've heard of in the time, especially, you know, relating to our country in South Africa. And still to this day, I am absolutely shocked by Nelson Mandela's passing, and I have all respect for him just completely for doing what he did and, you know, just bringing our nation together. And still to this day, my respects go to him and his family, and I just want to say thank you so much. And yeah, anyways guys, that's it from me for today, and if you were as shook by these conspiracy theories that I was, then give me a subscribe. I'm making videos every other day, and I'm going to be talking about some more of the stuff. Let me know if you liked it, give me a thumbs up. I really want to know your opinions, and yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll check you little conspiracy theorists later on.